We've all been brought here by Philip Lawson's generosity, which he is a river to his people. Thank you so much, Philip, for tonight. As Philip was just saying, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Philip. It's probably the best being over there. I'm sure it's great if we have this conversation like this publicly now. But it started, to a certain extent, bringing artists together in Europe. All over the place. Then COVID happens, different things happen, and we focused on the orphanage, Bethlehem, and then kind of getting back to a certain extent to making sure that we're helping artists and writers. And the first grant that we're going to give is to a poet that Philip introduced me to in India that, I think it's hard to read her work and not fall in love a little bit. And she goes by Gugs. And we're going to give her the first Weapons of Light grant. And you're here for that. And then I would just like, in honor of that moment, just so you know the kind of stuff that we're doing here, I'd like to just read a poem from her and then kind of introduce the rest of the night. So, Gugs, wish you could be here. And this is for you. The poem is titled, I Have Been Hiding of Late. I have been hiding of late, keeping a lower than low profile. If someone tried to look for me, they would be driven out of their mind. There's something you must know. I hide quite well in plain sight. If you were blind, then you could, for then your intuition would be on point. I do not have use of my name anymore. What's a name for a namesake? A nom de plume I dare not use, and refuse to hide behind a fake. I won't claim what's been disavowed. It's not either hubris nor petty pride. A nameless. Yes, I'm one of those, and can hide quite well behind his light. Thank you, Gugs, for that. Appreciate it. The idea that there are people who do well to hide in this world, I think, is pretty interesting for me to remember. So another person who is not here, who we should acknowledge, is Lily Wong, who is, in my humble estimation, a really brilliant poet. I had hoped to introduce a lot of people to her poetry tonight. If you hadn't had a chance to hear her, she's in the poetry world, she's famous. But that doesn't always translate to the rest of the world. But Lily has a couple of great books. My favorite is A Bestiary, and Amanda and I got to work with her on a podcast that we did some years ago, and she could not be here tonight because her father has had a medical emergency and has to fly to San Antonio. So spare a prayer, please, for Lily Wong. Just to give people their money's worth, and to warm up. Are there warm-ups at poetry readings? I thought someone like me should probably go first. So I'm going to be reading just a few poems to remind people what poems are like, and then you can hear good poems. This is called Interim. Pinched between the certainty of war and peace's sweet necessity, these days appear immovably fixed in the sky like stars before we crush their features into fact. The gathering distance pauses aloft like a hammer, but this hesitation is only a lifting mist over the leafy profusion of ghostly fingers curling in summons across the crowded floor. And each of us drifts towards an invitation. Don't reveal the ending or blurt a response. The distance poses a question everyone answers. There are moments, not these moments, mind you, when something inside us opens up on forever, and it doesn't matter if anything matters or not. No. Boy, your hands will be blistered by the end of the night. Listen. So this is called Bottom at the Bar. And if you're a poetry nerd, Wallace Stevens has a poem called Peter Quince at the Clavier. Peter Quince is a buffoon from Midsummer Night's Dream, and Bottom is even more buffoonish than Peter Quince. So if Peter Quince is at the clavier, Bottom's at the bar. And this is Bottom at the Bar. Even as my whistle wets and lifts me, the heights I reach was there before my drinking plunged me up. Bliss exists without us, as the treetop leads the climber. I taste now what must be true in one of the infinite worlds. A beautiful woman loves me for no good reason. In the ringing ears that wing my flapping heart, intoxication is like the howl of joy Judith drew from Holofernes. One arid harvest sunset, bronze and bangled, her thighs rode rhythmically across the sheets, until Holofernes, mid-seizure, came to taste the sweetness that no tongue can touch. There is a mindlessness to pleasure that the body itself despises. In the sunset, bronze and bangled, Judith writhes. She opens up the jewelry box and, leaving on her bobby socks, posts earrings that will sway while she holds still. Floating in the swirling wake, lovers roll in the tumble of panicky pulses. They breathe without restraint, kisses miss, in laughter each convulses. Elbow propped, she pets his chest, still panting. The curtains blow and die as bed sheets whipped, billow, settle, and gently come to lie. A cross-eyed sigh sluiced him into sleep. She watches, waits, and when he is quite still, she gives the sign. Right on cue, the drapes drew back. An old crone with a gunny sack crept forth with a curving blade, which into Judith's hands she laid. The carving knife to his throat she pressed, and from the wound his blood egressed. Off and on the lantern's beam lit his eyes in silent scream. The head fell in the gunny sack. Behind the drapes, the crone drew back. Ecstasy destroys the best-made minds, as sex unmakes the best-made bed, as death lays claim to the unready dead. And in my lock-strap diary I meet a working man with a thumbed Bible. And just the same, this fool is liable to think because he has diddled royalty, he is something more than what I see. All the faces practiced in the mirror never make our faces any clearer. I finally admit, therefore, the somewhat strange existence of pedal steel guitars from haunted honky-tonk bars and that part of my deep innermost where the faithful find the Holy Ghost. And I think that's quite enough, so I'm going to read one more. This is called The Ape in the Scarlet Cape, and these are lines composed for a friend, David McHenry, in honor of the gift of a stuffed animal. The ape is stuffed with nylon clouds that sees no other skies than his imagination crowds into his plastic eyes. Observe the ape, and you will find he wears no cape. It's in his mind. And just so no one's left behind, that is to say, my mind. If I listen, I can hear a thing he whispers in my ear. The mockers and scoffers and smiling hat doffers, who strike dashing stances and cast backward glances, the whingers and cringers and silent revengers, who answer with sighs and roll their eyes. The blamers and shamers and high horse proclaimers, who drink nor smoke nor crack a joke. The grabbers and stabbers and I've got to havers, who elbow right in with a blank-eyed grin. I watch from my throne up here, where it's safer to study and stare. Who is this ape in the scarlet cape? His cape not a cape, but a floor-length drape that covers his hindmost from handheel to nape. Am I the ape in the scarlet cape? A rhinestone tear on my cheek? The hump on my skull a coconut shape? A rubber band strapping a toucan beak over my flattened nose? A gorilla in trunk hose? Are you the ape in the scarlet cape? An interview should do, to wrap up the issue and measuring tape of your differing points of view. Let's chop the chit-chat, shall we? Straight to where we disagree. I say the room is inside out, and outside in it's me. You'd rather a garden fire and a gown of velveteen by digging in the darkness of a powder magazine with lighted matches pinched between your fingers till you swear by the conjugal relations of a son and mother pair. The ape is a conqueror, graceful and spare, commanding his legions in long underwear. The ape is a lover, clumsy and sweet, who uses a duster to tickle your feet. The ape is a scientist, harried and sloppy, exploring the chemicals found in the poppy. The ape is an actor, inveterate ham, ashamed to be so, just as I am. So that's what people try to do. That's poetry. People are trying. I would like to introduce our first real poet, James. You want to come on up? You want to say? Thank you. I promise I won't make this very long. James is an international man of mystery that I have been trying to meet for a long time. I know his work through, if you don't know this, his work through the Aesthetic Union. When I was the bumbling chair of a institution called the McCune Collection, we had a letterpress print and a letterprint press. And I was looking around the Bay Area for people who do the most beautiful work, and it's this guy. So I'm really pleased that he can be here to read for us. And with that, sir, thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Yeah. I'm going to read just a short one from this book I just got from a publisher it's an anthology of poems, and they're poems for whales. So each of these poems are inspired or taking notes from whales. And I think it would be good because we're right on the bay. There's lots of whales out there. So this poem is called Taking Refuge. Our dance floor is stretched over taut skin, a canvas of memory and muscle framed in bone. On this we paint our ways north. We are homecoming without land. Our pilgrimage trace ancestor paths, nothing to discover and everything to realize. Tirelessly is the way, hand and knee climbing through twisted oak forms up to the pinnacles of our eyes. Vessels for the moon in this life of a night. We are mirrored back in them. We are tangled of seeds and sticks, drifting throughout one another's starry paths. To know you deeply is a prayer. To see you tenderly is a vow. I bow to this aimless journey. I bow to the vessel before me and in me. I bow to the ocean that we all swim in together. I have a few copies of these if you're interested afterwards. So this other poem is it's a longish poem, but as all poems can be, it's shorter. I lived out in Richardson Bay for a little while on a boat, 1926 fishing boat, built in 1926, right in Richardson Bay by a man called Salvador Pascanucci, and it was called Famiglia Santa, which is Italian for Holy Family. And I lived on it for about 4 years. She unfortunately sank in Richardson Bay after I owned her, but we had many adventures together. And I wrote this poem after I sold her to another owner, and I finished this poem after she sank. It's called Holy Family, which is after her. And it talks a lot about the anchor outs and the houseboat dwellers and old salts and fishermen and anchor outs out in the bay. If you're not familiar with that past, there's a wonderful documentary called The Last Free Ride, which docked the houseboat wars in the 1970s and 80s. Before the houseboat wars that shook the rich and brought the waterlogged bodies to be broken by the Army Corps of Engineers, the bay was here. A long northerly finger made not by hands, carved by the Creator, covered in reeds and grasses, fish and flood tides, flowing into Eden at the gates of paradise. After a millennia, vessels were dragged ashore and tied about. This was the place they called freedom, and fought hard against those who would claim it for capital. On this stage, I was a guest, blessed to be brought into its bosom. The water's undying indifference healed me, and on its body we floated upon, dreaming outside the law. And that's where we'll depart. I once danced to the city's heartbeat, riding the waves of wired hills, climbing, full of hope and splendor, watching those below, and as all things go, eventually stumbling into those lows, and pushed to the edge, to creosote docks, walking, looking for another way up. This is where I fell into the Holy Family. She was a manger of rotting wood with a ballast of battered books, oak ribs sheathed in fur, fan-tailed, her bow upright, narrow galley crammed into the wheel, gliding above the glass, her name proudly outstretched over the bay. 100 years she dipped her nets to reap, now weathered. She was kept alive to save. This exquisite reliquary was my refuge, my new sanctuary. From the hatch she let out a menagerie of cigarette-smoking, half-beast men, with salt-soaked beards, hunting all manner of scales and shells that they plucked from the angel-drowned waters. I stayed back for a while and watched them reap and laze about, carefully knowing my place. The curious came, seeing my landing, a fanfare of false prophets, snake-oiled saviors with hanging cracked halos, worshipping Moloch and printed paper, they stripped bare this braided oddity. This, my story, they served as a false sacrament, sweet and tragic, garnished with bitter hope, awaiting tender-lipped Sunday readers. Those tourists now abandoned the wharf when the rains came. It was my baptism, soaking me to the bone. On my forehead ash from the wood stove. I waited, but was not forsaken. That night a star fell, silent through storm-tossed swells. Its light climbed through the creaking gunnels, soaked into the sooty notebooks, finally stoking the fire of a heart, sacred, made flesh, stitched into me, pierced, branded, and bleeding, solid, or I thought. And then all the lights scattered and rescinded like a comet in reverse. With no stars to guide me home, I was stranded. The sickly city siren called me back to drink from its fountains and swim in its alleys. And from that lone porthole, I stared at that amber-lit bridge, its answers easy, but permanent. My confession too heavy to bear. Time had no hold. I was buoyant and bobbing in the white foam, sliding over silver sands, a blank canvas to sketch my future. Brush-headed clouds, cerulean eyes. I painted the people, caught in the ugly flow of tides and moons and schools of fish that poured through the gate with every flood. It was herring season again. And that's when my damp nightmare ended. I was netted in those strangers' arms, those smoke-haloed beings whom I stared at from the deck. They held me fast. They chanted the work to be done. They beat the deck with their heavy boots, exorcised my demons trapped in iron-sick oak, holy stone scraping, and together we aired out our rags in the westerly wind, falling exhausted. Lying flat on our backs, gazing up at the night, we waited for any star to return. I speak not to conjure the past, but to spread my memories thin. A prayer for absolution as I try to lay it all to rest, burying it in the mud and the silt where she now sits. These seeds I sow are not grief trouble, but watery salvation that have taken hold in the riprap of my mind, a sea fever, as Macefield wrote. So with these confessions, I wipe my hands clean, and I let them slip one by one, dripping sweet memories into the salt marsh, emptying into a wide ocean of grief, tidal-locked love. I pray that we arrive at the shore that we need and find rest in our own holy families. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, James. I really, seeing the wrecks, what's left, knowing that there's so much history and that had no idea that you were a part of that in your way. Thank you for sharing. The next poet, Liz Hazen, has traveled all the way from Maryland to be here tonight, and it's the honor, my incredible honor, to introduce you to her. We went to I'm not going to say how long ago. Went to graduate school together, and Johns Hopkins, and there are these, you meet people, and in the back of your mind, you're like, I could be meeting a lot of famous people at a writing program, right? Did I mention I was very young? But, I was like, I met Liz Hazen, and I was like, oh, man. Some people here are really smart. I gotta be. But Liz is also just one of the most amazing poets that it's ever been my honor to know. And thank you so much for being here. Without further ado, Liz Hazen. Thank you.
That was so nice. It was a long time ago. And I don't think I've seen you really since then.
It was like 30 minutes one time.
Yeah. And it's so cool to be here. This is amazing. And I'm overwhelmed. And this space is beautiful. So just thank you so much for having me. And I hope you enjoy. I'm just going to read some poems. All right. This one is new-ish. It's called Approximations. The sun is not on fire, after all. Nothing burns. Protons smash to make a gaseous mass of heat, but without flame. All these years I've had it wrong. Like when my anger wasn't anger at all, rather fear mixed up with loneliness. But I was talking about the sun, the nuances of burning, the stories we learn as children. Bulls charge if they see red. The moon alone controls the tides, and Twinkies last forever. Didn't we all wait for watermelons to bloom in our bellies? Bank on the belief that effort yields reward? Doesn't your name, too, sound like a foreign language? Look at us, barefaced, slouching through middle age. I wouldn't say the birds here sing so much as shriek. I wouldn't trust myself to say a thing, betrayed as I am by language. This sun that burns us isn't fire, but look at us. Our cheeks flush just the same. Thanks. This one, I think I wrote kind of a long time ago, but it feels more relevant these days. It's called Fable. The sky has been falling for decades, crushing us under its weather. We've had no choice but to dig our own graves, places to hide from the havoc coming down. My father taught me how to disengage rock from cliff face, how to clean surfaces with my tongue, but nothing about putting things to rights. Time is a shoe sinking beneath the surface of a pond, green film gulping it under. Giving a thing a name is not the same as substance. We grasp for words, for air, for heaven, which will fall and crush us, but for which we nonetheless keep reaching. We call to mothers who forgot us years ago. The sky falls and presses us down, gravity stronger than the arms that hold us, the gruff hold still, the force like the will we use each day to carry on. I see the light shifting. Our axis has tilted. The sky falls like a hatch to seal us in. We define our personal spaces, stock our bunkers, shelter in place. The sky is an illusion after all. There's solid ground and air we breathe if we are lucky enough to breathe unhindered. An atmosphere we call sky, but the idea of blue is just reflection. The idea there's a limit to the damage we can do is myth. Our greed will bring the whole world crashing down, and still we will insist it's only weather. Like a little heavy, but it's, I don't know, it's like weapons for peace, and it's like I tend to write sort of small poems, like very personal, and that was one that was a little bit more, bigger. My dad is a scientist, and I think I mentioned him in one of the other poems, but I spent a lot of time collecting fossils with him when I was a kid. But he is like classic, just completely obsessed. So like if you go to his house, it's just trays upon trays upon trays of specimens everywhere. And I won't say more than that. I guess that will give you a sense of kind of where his mind is and his focus and his energy. This is called Trilobites. Before you understood the risk of breaking things apart, you sat beside your father in the quarry, mimicked the deft slipping of his chisel between layers of shale. Before you had the threat of time holding you, the arms of your child holding you, the voice on the phone, hold on. There was the quarry, the heft of stones in your cupped hands, the grace of chisel, hammer, pick. You learned patience, opening rock after rock, finding clusters of brachiopods, fragments of thorax, or nothing but smooth gray shale, and sometimes a trilobite, intact, spiny, armored, its twin halves fat as big toes. Then he would set his chisel down, cradle the find, lick dust from its two faces. He dug through outcrops, gravel pits, creek beds, searching for that reflected face, as yours hardened. What did he seek in them? They warp his shelves with prehistoric weight. You see nothing except the charcoal blotches left behind, that old stone pit, the mirroring, the dust. No human quality, save the way, if you squint, they resemble mouths. The round darkness, the black O, waiting to shape speech. Thought I would read, I was sort of picking out things to read. I might read a couple of poems that are about my son, which in this first book he was a baby, and then the poems that are going to be in the next one, he's an adult, sort of. I mean, he's 18. So this is called Extraction. My milk ripe with Percocet, I let my son wail through the night, coming back at last to the isolation of my body, the distinction of my flesh. I break space to move along. The maxillary molars stay undisturbed. Better if we leave well enough alone. Such is wisdom, idle till that spark of pain. I tongue the clot. Soon, tissue will fill in the gap and harden. Across the hall, my son cuts teeth, gnaws his knuckles, but stops short of breaking skin. A body holds more mysteries than the mouth can bring itself to speak. Soon, my breasts will unswell. The pain of weaning will fade away. The pain in my gum will fade away. Already the socket is closing. One day, my son's mouth will bloom with teeth, then questions, secrets. Even now, I hear slamming doors, revving departures, the spaces left behind. And I guess I was going to do... This is another one he's still a little boy in this. Sorry. This is called Imperatives. 1. Once we found a great white tooth, as long as my son's thumb. Once we dragged a jellyfish to shore and watched it throbbing like a huge transparent heart. Once we stayed in pajamas for 5 days, waiting out the snow. Last week, a brown-headed cowbird dead beside our door. 3 days later, I dumped the corpse behind the shed. 2. Chlorine smell catches in his shaggy hair. Yesterday's stale coffee, the slant of rain that wets my windowsill, the shoes he outgrew months ago, but I refuse to throw away. 3. Braced teeth and tangle of preteen limbs vamp for the camera, caught squinting or mid-laugh or barely there, just a halo of red hair hovering in the back or a crown of green goggles bobbing. My son, unsmiling. The family curse might skip him, this inward turning darkness. 4. My father took me early to feed the science teacher's brown anoles, who ate live mealworms, wriggling golden larvae packed in wheat bran, the smell of which still makes me gag. Once I found a lizard corpse, part cannibalized, part decayed. 2 days later, wisps of skeleton, filigree of bone. 5. Brown-headed cowbirds lay eggs in others' nests, abandoning their young. Brown anoles eat their molted skin. Sometimes they eat their tails. Sometimes they eat their young. My skin is thin as testa, seed coat beneath a cracked shell. Thank you. So some of those were from books, and then I have a third one coming out in like about a year. It takes a long time, but so then I was going to read some from that. And And this one's called Making Teeth. I take walks with this friend of mine, Boo. She goes by Boo. We have this park behind our house in Baltimore, and we just chat. And she's not an artist. She kind of, I don't know, she's a really cool person, but she just tells me stories. And she had really interesting parents. So I wrote this after she kind of described growing up with her mother, who I think was a narcissist. I think was probably a lesbian, and was very kind of cold, but... in any case, this is called Making Teeth, after walking in the woods with Boo. My mother didn't have a name for it, but Boo's mom called it mommy drag. Not just the pantyhose and painted face she wore to pick up kids from school or play dates, but the whole charade of niceties. My mother spent her days in sweatpants writing, but changed into a dress before my father came back home. I thought such transformations part and parcel of a woman's lot, the people we became in public, like costumes concealing our true selves from the world, like the hollow book where my mother stored her pearls, hidden in plain sight. Boo and I walk through the woods, smoking weed like teenagers, but unafraid of getting caught. Middle-aged women are innocuous as moss. When we become invisible, will we be able to stop hiding? Give up the mores of our mothers, unclench our smiles? Boo's mother called it making teeth. My mother's version, grin and bear it. Smiles, accessories like earrings or silk scarves. Making teeth, I say out loud, the words themselves like gnashing, a sinking into things, vicious as the jaws of an angry dog, cold as forceps, speculums, the tools of turning women inside out. The words are razors in my mouth. Make teeth, make teeth, make teeth, make teeth, make teeth. Thank you. Let's do maybe like 3 or 4 more. All right, in the realm of being middle-aged now, this is called Woman at 45, although now it should be called Woman at 46, but time does march on. Time is a stepmother, staking her claim, establishing boundaries, getting her house in order. Time is a bully with violent fists. For years I turned my pockets out for her. But these days I lie in bed watching the sun come up, watching the deer who nibble at the brush out back. Dawn transforms the sky from black to bluish white. The trees so narrow and erect could be bars. A clump of green and gold balloons has been stuck in the branches of a locust tree for years now, Mardi Gras-colored mylar shimmering against the washed-out world. I didn't write a thing all week, but watched vibrations of the leafless trees. The hours ask nothing of me. For years, I waited for a sign, directive or disaster, to dictate what came next. But time is patient, has nowhere else to be. In the mirror, cruel cliche, a stranger with dark circles, a weariness set deep behind the eyes. And what of success? I have no status to report. I've been lucky my whole life, and still this disappointment. Some cultures read the map of aging faces with respect. In ours, I'll fade out, a ghost, before I've died. No matter. Wait long enough and everything will change. Wait long enough and everything will circle back to what it was before you got here. The trees know nothing of striving, of titles or commendations. A month from now, leaves will fill my view with verdancy. The sun burns on its own power, immovable and fierce. Time is indifferent as a river. Let it smooth my edges like sea glass, bury me like treasure someone might be glad to find. All right, thank you. There's this form that I discovered that I love. It's called a gloss. And you take, does anyone know that form? I think it's like an old Spanish form. You take 4 lines from an existing poem, and then Each of those 4 lines becomes the final line of a 10-line stanza, and there's like a rhyme scheme in there. But it's a really cool way to take a poem and kind of interact with it, and then also it's a really great way to steal 4 good lines and work those into your poem. So this one, it's a poet, Vijay Seshadri. It's contemporary. I think this was a poem that was in the New Yorker, and I just loved it. So the 4 lines from his poem, which is a wonderful poem called Cliffhanging. His lines are, I won't let myself fall, but I don't want to pull myself up. I'm ambivalent forever now. But if you were here looking down on me and saying, grab my hand, I would. I know, I surely would. And so then I took those lines and I wrote a poem. And this is a poem for my son who's now, as I said, he's 18. It's hard. Like, being alive is super hard. And, when one finds it hard herself, trying to, like, encourage the child to not give up and explain why it's worth sticking around, all those things, it's really hard. And so I think a lot of the poems I've written recently are kind of about, they have to do with, like, almost like, what do I say to my son? Like, I'm not good at this. I don't know why I'm here. I'm here because I wake up and I just do it. Anyhow, so this is for my son, after Seshadri's Cliffhanging. This morning, you told me you don't care about feeling better anymore. You've adapted to the nagging doom, the dirt we brush beneath the carpet, the other shoe that always drops. I'd say you're too young to be so dark, but when I was your age, sadness and rage were mixed up in everything I felt, vibrations holding me together. You see my inconsistencies. I embrace my despair as an old friend, even as I insist you must fill your cup. I won't let myself fall, but I don't want to pull myself up. I've tried to hide my uncertainty, but you winced when I said the best years are ahead. So now I say, time and age teach you to fall a little less painfully. I say, skin thins as you get older, so steel yourself against disappointments now. Practice breathing. Learn your limits. Trust discriminately. Don't allow your inner critic to stifle every effort. I know it's hard, but some days just going through the motions is its own accomplishment. I'm still learning how. I'm ambivalent. I'm ambivalent forever now about everything except endorphins and rising seas and time moving in one direction with or without us. It's not an easy moment to be alive. You hear me shout at other drivers, curse my rivals, declare I can't do it anymore. I don't know whether everyone feels this way, that staying in one place will do them in. I've fallen apart before your eyes, madwoman on her knees. I've failed to model gratitude, patience, praying. But if you were here, looking down on me and saying, I don't believe in anything either, I'd force myself to stand. I'd show you tattooed on my arm, there are millions of suns left. Some days this optimism is more grimace than smile, but still, I've papered my office with verses I love, photographs of people I love, a stack of books, the armor of my adulthood. It's easy to turn bitter, to ignore the miraculous beating heart, the sun's bold assertions. But if you fell, I'd call out, get up, keep going. I have a whole arsenal of good. Grab my hand, I would, I know, I surely would. Thank you. I'm just going to read one more. This is probably the most recent thing that I've written. Really trying to find more positive. There's lots of positive things. I just haven't always in my work focused on those. But I'm making a conscious effort. This is called Such Wonders. 2 a.m. coming home from the emergency room. Out on the boat, before your accident, we killed the motor and waited for a green flare. When the sun hits the tip of a mountain's highest peak, emerald bursting like a science fiction time warp. Our eyes grew raw from staring at the sun, but nothing happened. Still, it was beautiful, the way the sky took on a golden tinge and the water was almost glowing. Such wonders reveal themselves every day. In Cuba, our tour guide plucked passion fruit from the tree, its flesh tart as the bite of an angry kiss. Didn't we marvel at the sweetness? Our children were so young back then. Time expands like hot metal we're too afraid to touch. I've cradled the corpses of butterflies, wings intricate as cathedral windows, delicate as old parchment. I've opened stones to find trilobites, the tidiness of their hiding, a miraculous magic trick. Even grass grows right before our eyes. Last week, I learned that lightning travels underground when I saw the white oak burned up from its roots. It's good to be reminded of how much I still don't know, to be shocked into awareness as we seek relief from humid summers in a lake so cold it steals our breath. I didn't see what happened when you fell. You've stepped from boat to dock 100 times before. It was just a stupid accident, a broken rib and 13 stitches, nothing that would not heal. But all night I was angry at the fragility of your body, the split-second missteps that cannot be undone. Fatigue pixelated the night, grainy black and white like old TV. On the road home, I stopped in time to let a trio of raccoons dash past and disappear into the woods. By then, we were giddy with our own survival. So much disaster looms on the peripheries, but back at the lake, fireflies lit up the night, their slowly growing lights a comfort. For every flare that faded out, another one lit up. Thank you.